Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual as Fuck
or whatever
podcast. I'm Roxan McDonald.
And I'm Joe Clements.
And first off, we'd just love to thank everyone who already liked, subscribed, and reviewed our podcast. It really does help.
Thank you so much.
And I would just like to thank everyone in advance who's going to go do that right now.
5 stars.
5-star ratings help everything. Also, if you'd like to support this podcast and the work that we're doing, please go to our Patreon page. There's a link in the bio. We're going to be we do offer more access to Joe's meditations, some music. I give some reading lists. We're just a little bit more engaged on there, and any little bit helps. So even if you can only give the $4 a month, that really matters. So
thank you very, very much.
Thank you. This week we are first going to talk about
I made a mistake and sent Roxanne a picture before I got sober about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Jeremy, if you could just make sure like this picture gets put up.
Really?
And yes.
That much.
Yes.
Cool.
Can we just, if you're on YouTube, please just let's take a moment and it's going to be up now.
Yeah, so this is going to make people want to go check out our YouTube channel to really see the beauty of this picture.
It's up right now. I'm asking Jeremy to have this up. So right now you are looking at the majesty of this incredible photo of Joe Clements, the esteemed meditation teacher. And if you're not on YouTube, we will be posting this on all of our social media platforms.
Yeah, right. Can I do a before and after?
Just a before. No, we can do a before and after.
Cool.
People know the after but
can handle this.
So, Joe,
yeah,
can we talk about this?
There's a lot to unpack. Do you want to show the picture first?
It's up. It was up on YouTube.
Oh,
I'm asking Jeremy to do some editing. And I know he will do it because if he has seen this photo, he is going to want to share this thing. I'm just going to describe it a bit for people just listening. So it's our Joe, and he still has glasses.
I definitely look like a walrus for sure.
You do look walrus-y, happy in some way, but I don't feel. Hammered. Yeah, it looks. It looks kind of like if Fred Flintstone was on some sort of weird steroid.
Yeah.
And
so, what do you want to know about this photo?
Yeah. Well, I just want to. I'm not going to. What the fuck?
So it was Halloween night.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Let me just see. 10 years ago?
Yeah. So I was really, oh my God.
I'll just keep looking at it.
Do you notice how I still have a spiritual necklace on?
Oh, I thought that was your wedding ring because it looks like
it didn't fit on my finger.
It didn't fit on your finger.
Were too swollen.
And it's too small for your neck.
You are actually right.
Okay, because this cord around your neck.
Yes. I wouldn't fit around my finger because I was a little bloated.
Is that your wedding ring?
That is my wedding ring.
Yeah. And this is like some very tattered looking cord that is cutting off the circulation to your brain.
It's a choker. It's not a choker. It actually was a nice necklace that turned into a choker. So yeah, that was basically the fug it time of my life. And there was a killer bar up in Ben Lomond, California.
The old B-Lo. You know, classy
hen flings. And it was Halloween night, and everybody was dressing up, and I'm like, I don't want to fucking dress up. I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to put on my robe and my pajamas and go to the bar. So I was in my robe and my pajamas at the bar, yeah. And just fucking raging it, you know?
So the thing that I was surprised about is that your wife was married to that.
Yeah, that poor person. And very tolerant person.
Yeah.
Or dismissive, I don't know.
And the thing that gets me, and I don't know, I mean, we can just put a space here in case your wife, can I say her name?
Yeah.
If Michaela is, not wanting to be talked about, but I have always viewed Michaela as like, if Jackie Kennedy liked punk rock music, like that kind
That's
of
a
like,
great description.
yes, just like all like kind and classy and beautiful, and then also just like cool. And then she's married to that.
But you gotta remember, so she is kind and beautiful. She sees the good in she brings home stray pets a lot. I think I was just a stray pet for a little bit or something. It's like, they're there, Joe, go sleep on the couch. You'll be all right. Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, when we got together in my early 20s, I was sober.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't start using again until it was weird together for at least 10 years.
Yeah, that is love, like commitment.
There's a commitment level. Crummy, I was pretty hurting, I was really fucking hurting, and I was.
Why is it so funny though? I know you're hurting.
It's hilarious because it is, and I can laugh at it, and be. That it's sometimes a painful reminder, but it's good to like, oh yeah, and I was trying my best. I was trying to just show up, and I was really wanted to drink beer and
there's a beer in this picture.
There is a beer, but I remember that night where I was like, that was a typical night for me where I'd get drunk, but it wasn't enough. And I was searching for pills, and then I was searching for Coke and anything I could. And nobody would give me anything because they're like, dude, you need to fucking, I couldn't, I don't know. It was pretty amazing. So yeah.
Well, I think because we're going to talk about forgiveness.
I forgive that person.
Yeah. And I think luckily for me, there's like horrible pictures out there of me, but when I got sober, I was a teenager, and there wasn't digital cameras even around. And
so there's a Polaroid somewhere of you. They're black and white.
They're the tintypes, where they had to put the thing
so
over.
They say it's a poof, this big bulbs. That was it.
Yeah, that's what all that was really. I'm so grateful because it would look like that. And I think though, looking at it, I feel like there is a culture for us about looking at ourselves at our worst, where then we do see the humor in it, but also underlying there is this is a physical representation of what happens.
Drugs are bad, okay. Yeah, for sure.
But also just that wanting to not be.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
It looks.
Well, forget it. Yeah, I mean, we can keep going in the picture, but there's not much more to say. The picture says it for itself. I couldn't even fit in my my glasses were even too small for my face.
It's not. It's not just a weight thing. It's a bloat.
It's bloated. The pills.
Yeah.
Really, I was pilled
there's a lot
out.
Of
I was
of
boozed
sweat
out.
Involved here too.
And I had my robe on at the bar.
Glow of sweat.
Yeah. But the forgiveness piece, this is a huge thing for me. So I could look at that picture. I could think of my past and just be in a lot of shame around my addiction, about being an addict, about being an alcoholic. And it was a shame, and the shame for a long time kept me using, because I was the shame of relapse, all the shame spiral. But it occurred to me through a forgiveness practice, and I had to think about it a little bit, even when I first started using, and especially when I first started using. And I had to think about, was I trying to harm myself? No. I just wanted I wanted to fucking feel some peace and ease. So really it was the most compassionate act I could do for myself at the time. It's the only tool I knew. It was all around me. It was in my family. People were doing it. And when friends, so when I found it, I was like, oh, there was some peace, there was some ease. So that was my tool throughout life. So even when I got sober, I didn't really apply myself to learn any new tools. I was still grasping, and we talked about it a little bit. I was still grasping outside of myself with fame, music, whatever it was, relationship. So I was never dealing with the underlying issue kind of thing. So when I was in that pain, because the pain was still there, the only tool that I had was using. And when the pain got enough, when the music wasn't there, the band wasn't there anymore, the fame wasn't there anymore, I was left to the old devices. Why do you want to zoom in that picture right now and put it in the middle of us? And drugs and alcohol brought some ease again. So
I'll put it.
The going to using and being, I don't even like the word being an addict, you know, or just drinking and using, was easing the pain. Now, the behavior around it, the things I did to get my drugs, to get high, super unacceptable and maybe some unforgivable, but that person is totally forgivable. Is because I can see through an empathetic lens just myself and have compassion for myself that I didn't have a tool to ease the pain, and when I mean pain is like that discomfort, that the old wounds, the not being good enough or whatever, not good enough, not enough, and now I'm learning new tools through mindfulness, through meditation, through spirituality. And it led me to really know what compassion is, what empathy is, and led me to forgiveness for myself. And I guess forgiveness for myself first, and I mean forgiveness for others.
Yeah. I wonder, because we have been, when we were talking about recording this, and we keep going back and forth, because I was like, don't we have to talk about compassion before we can get into forgiveness? And then I have the question, so we could just do the other thing is, how do you start to forgive? And I think my experience, both doing it within myself and helping other people, was learning to forgive, learning to have compassion and forgiveness for others, and then it went to myself, but that it didn't actually truly land and become a part of me until it got to myself.
Right, yes.
And so then it's that thing where it's that balance again of like, yes and it has to be towards ourself, and it has to be towards others. And that usually it's like just the day-to-day thing of, where can I find an entrance, where can I find an opening within myself? Is it easier
opening for forgiveness?
And that also, then how do we talk about this without really starting to unpack shame?
Well, it's
all just like,
it's all just there, and it's not linear. I mean, kind of, for me, my own experience, and I do, thinking about it too, like forgiving myself, I had to have some big forgiveness moments for other people before I could see. And for me, it was through an empathy lens, through compassion. And yeah, we'll talk about compassion and empathy more. But since we're on on forgiveness, and I remember there was an instance where it really landed for me, forgiveness, because I talk about forgiveness a lot in my groups and for my own practice, and it was always like, yeah, forgiveness, but the fucking guy's still an asshole, whatever, you know. And I thought I had to forget to forgive, and that switched for me. It's like, no, I don't have to forget the action,
no,
but the actor kind of thing is forgivable, and I couldn't wrap my head around that until, and I have a story that how I came to this is one of my uncles was passing away. He was dying, and he was dying of things that we die from in active addiction and alcoholism. He had cancer of the liver. It was failing. He was an alcoholic. And he was this uncle that when I was a kid, he was one of the caregivers in my life. My dad was in and out of my life, and my uncle was there, and he was really mentally abusive and physically abusive, and but he was super cool too. Like, he would jump off these huge fucking, I remember being at this river where he would jump off this house. It was like fucking 3 stories high into this little swimming hole, and he was just like, he was super cool. I don't know, I looked up to him, but he was super mean too, you know, and call me a sissy and that kind of thing. A lot of my old wounds were from that. So growing up, I kind of distanced myself from him. When I can figure out that, oh yeah, that fuck that guy, you know. I still had to go to family things, and it was around, but it was just like, I had a lot of, I don't know if it was hatred, but just, yeah, I don't like him. And so when he was passing away, it's hard for me to talk about, because if my family's listening too, I just want to be transparent with that, you know. But yeah, this is my truth. And when he was passing away, my mom, you know, it was a battle, and my mom was like, "You should go see your uncle. Doesn't look like he's doing too good." And I'm like, "Ah, man, all right." And I'm already afraid of death too. It was like this whole thing, and so I'm like, all right. And I went over to see him, and it was just me and him, and he's sitting on the couch, and I can tell he would look at me, but he wanted to say something, but he couldn't. He would just watch TV, and I was like, okay, this is awkward kind of thing. And I just sat there with him, and I'm like, and it clicked. I'm like, and just, I knew his history about his growing up. And that hit me like, oh man, he was really abused when he was a kid. And so he was suffering. And his suffering was spilling out onto me, and that kind of clicked. And then he's passing with all this suffering still. He wasn't able to even ask for forgiveness or anything, or just talk to me about it. I could tell, I don't know if he was gonna, but it just kind of felt like that. And I'm like, whoa. And I just had this this empathy that just arose of his suffering and what he's passing with, a lot of suffering. I don't know if he made amends to anybody that he harmed in his life, and he harmed some people. He's a good dude too. He meant well, but he had a lot of stuff. And so that night I just sat there with him for an hour. We didn't really say anything, but there was some ease and there's some compassion, and just didn't do anything. But there was and then the next day he passed. And I don't have any ill will towards him. I have a lot of compassion for him and a lot of forgiveness for him. And he was a great teacher for me. Because when I could do that now, I can break that cycle. The suffering that he was passed down to him and then passed it to me, I can break that cycle now. So in my interactions with my son or my nephews, I can watch because that mean, you know, picking on or whatever will come out, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's not how I want to live. That's not how I want to pass down. And so how I got to forgiveness was through an empathetic, compassionate lens of yeah.
I had the thing though, that when I would come up towards forgiveness, and it was from very early on when I got sober and was in therapeutic communities and going to meditations, and the word forgiveness would come up, and I would get defensive. And then I would have this like very clear, like this anger. I didn't have it clear, but looking back on myself, and now when it comes up, I'm like, this anger is here to protect me.
Yeah.
Bless my heart. I am wanting to protect myself. And then I would, when I would be teaching people about forgiveness, I think there's this way that when we say forgiveness, and that there's people who maybe don't have the response of needing to protect themselves as much.
Right.
Or that we're so far away from it that we forget that, that it's not a bypass to like, don't check, like that if I even get into forgiveness, then I have to be, available for people to harm me, or to like, I think to honor that there is a thing to go, is there information in my resistance to this? And then to love myself enough to get myself physically out of the way of harm, to get myself emotionally out of the way of harm. Not that that everything in my life has to change, but like for me, I had people wanting me to forgive my parents when I was still a kid.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even living with them, but I was homeless, and I needed parents still. And I needed to practice forgiveness for other things and keep my anger for them, because it kept me from going towards wanting them as my parent.
Yep.
And so when people ask me about like forgiveness, I think that the most of us have had some sort of contact with, let's be compassionate. But then I get questions all the time about, well, how do you do it? And there's the first part.
What is it?
Forgive. Like, how do you do it? How do you forgive? Yeah. And what I heard.
It's a doing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What you heard?
Well, what I heard is that there was this opening to where you saw something and you went, oh,
yeah,
this wasn't about me. This was about them.
I was affected.
Yes.
For sure.
So I was affected, but their actions weren't about me.
Right.
And then that brings this, I think, a consciousness of what happened to me or wasn't about me. It affected me. And that there's a shift where we go, that, you know, just because they treated me like I wasn't worthy doesn't mean I wasn't worthy.
Right.
And it's just you know, you disconnect that. And then when you can disconnect the actions that the person did with the human being that they are. And then I think that just starting to look at those things as separate, and then we can forgive the person and not the action.
Yeah.
And even it doesn't take away from the responsibility of the person and my responsibility towards myself.
Yeah. And I really, were you finishing a thought?
Well, I want to get, yeah. I do, whenever I talk about forgiveness, I do want to get to some tools, like like, this is where you start. This is where we started. But I think you have more to say about the concept.
I think seeing it too. And so we don't need to forgive. So forget. I don't think I need to forget to forgive. And there's discernment and there's wisdom in that, where I can forgive someone, but doesn't mean I need to let them in my life. They don't need to be in my life, you know, but I'm connected to these people in one way or the other. If I'm thinking about them or they're feeling an emotion, I'm connected. So why not work on some forgiveness? Why not work on that resentment that is fucking only holding me down, holding me back? I think Buddha said that resentment and ill will is like picking up a coal and trying to throw it at somebody that you hate. You know, even if it hits them, you're still getting burned first.
Yeah.
So it's
my saying about that is nobody burns another person's house down without being on fire themselves.
Exactly. So the connected piece, and that's where the spirituality piece is. I'm connected in some way with all these people, and I don't need to let them into my life just because I forgive them. I can let them into my heart. I can see them through an empathetic, compassionate lens about their suffering, that they're suffering. And it helps me in relationship in general. So now I can see, I don't need... Compassion just doesn't mean to just let fucking people walk all over me. You know, I can know when, this behavior leads to this with a person. So I can either be in this relationship or I can choose not to be. You know?
Or I can choose to be like, you don't get to do that shit and be here. Like, this is...
Because I know that pain. It's not just because, I'm supposed to, you know. It's different when you're a kid and you're growing up with all that stuff. And it takes a while. It takes a long time.
I've found that the more compassionate I've gotten and the more I have been forgiving, the clearer my boundaries have gotten.
That's what I mean.
I mean,
Yeah.
I take so much less shit nowadays
Yeah.
because I am actively a compassionate and forgiving person. Because when I'm not forgiving too, is that I name things as wrongs against me. I'm like, because when I'm in the state of like protection and defense, I will see things as something happening to me instead of just they're there.
Yeah.
And then so like, I know that when I get into a state of not forgiveness and not actively being like conscious about being a forgiving, compassionate person, then it all becomes about me. And then there's all the shit I have to forgive.
Yeah.
And that's
that's not beneficial either. Yeah.
No. I think though with forgiveness, there's the part where I had to realize, so I mean, if you've listened to the podcast at all, it's like that I come from intense abuse, and the abuse happened from people that I love.
Yeah.
And that for me, I needed to make sure that I didn't just go, I'm just a forgiving person and everyone's hurting and it all comes from a place of hurting, because my love for them, without my anger and without the stuff I needed to forgive being up, I needed to make sure that I was looking at whether I was safe or not. And then when I got to, I know I said that already, but I think then when I got to the place where I went, okay, like I have the information and it's clear that I'm not going to allow them to harm me again. Yeah. I'm not going to put myself in that position. When I had to start facing them as humans, when I opened myself up to that because of the love that caused it to hurt so bad.
Yeah.
When somebody just on the street is shitty or does something bad, yes, it hurts. And it doesn't get to the core of me. Like somebody recently just randomly punched my car, like while I was like in traffic, and they punched my mirror off. And it shook me. Yeah. I was like, whoa. And I had to pull off, and the world is not a safe place. And why would they do that to me? And it was right when I was like, I'm struggling for money, and I'm like, I can't afford this, and this is horrible. And I was so mad, but it didn't actually get through to the core of me where I went, am I not worthy of being safe? Am I not worthy? And those people that I need to forgive there, when I have loved somebody and felt like they loved me too, and there's this soul kind of contract with families and stuff, those are such big things to forgive. And so when I would lead people into forgiving, it's like the flame of the fire of anger, to start with ones that are not like a forest fire.
Absolutely.
To start smaller.
Yeah.
We generally get the like tool, and that my experience is that I did. Every time somebody would say, let's do a forgiveness meditation, and it would be like my mom, my stepdad, my dad, my, like the people who beat me, the people who molested me. Wow, fuck forgiveness.
Yeah, for sure. So you would go to aversion, you would go to anger. I remember when I was on a meditation retreat, and every night they would do forgiveness, like a forgiveness meditation, and I would get so fucking tired. I would be totally awake going in, okay, cool, and they're okay, we're gonna do forgiveness, and we start doing it, and I'd just be like, I'm so sorry. And that's just my mind going, no. Yeah. Fuck no, you were not going there. And that's, they cut sloth and torpor. It's one of the fuck. I can't say all the stuff right now, but it's one of the the hindrances in Buddhism that when
fuck. It's one of the fucks.
It's one of the fucks.
That actually works too.
Yeah, it's a hindrance that our mind or whatever is just like, no. Nope, you're not fucking ready. Check the fuck out.
Well, and sometimes it's time to just get the information. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but sometimes you're just like, I've read books where it's talking about something, and then I go like, or I think that's good for you, but I'm not there. And then 2 months, a year down the line, all of a sudden I'm like ready.
Yeah. With my uncle, I was ready. And I'm like, oh, and that's how not everybody maybe goes through with empathy and compassion to forgiveness. I don't know, but it worked for me, and I offer that as a way to check in, just kind of look into somebody, not like look into the why, but what happened for this person. Suffering always feels suffering. We all suffer, and our suffering spills out onto to others. So when I can see that, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, okay.
The thing for me, so when we started meditating on forgiveness, and that we would start, I mean, I don't know what your practice is now, but my experience with forgiveness meditations is that it would start with just thinking of myself and a wrong I had done.
Yeah.
And then asking for forgiveness for me.
Yeah.
And then seeing that, like, this is the feeling that was behind when I did this wrong. This is the wrong is but it's like when I harmed somebody, and when I have been in the way I lovingly call this stuff is when I'm being a fuckhead.
Yeah.
It's like because it's just fuckheaded. Like I think I need to be faster, and so my need to get there somewhere quicker makes it okay for me to cut somebody off.
Right.
And then I would go to
little things.
To start with little things, not the big things.
Yeah.
But then
my mind always goes to the big fucking ones, though.
Yeah. Well, that's like I was a swing dancer for a really long time, and I taught swing dancing, and I would have students come in, and they would be like, "Okay, I want to do an aerial." And that's when you get flipped around and you're doing it. So you have to trust your partner. You could break your neck. You'd like all this stuff. And I'd be like, no, we're doing the basic steps.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that with you.
Yeah.
And then that's the way we tend to go into these kind of things of going like, don't try to do an aerial with forgiveness when you're first starting.
Self-forgiveness, though, was really fucking hard for me. And that's where my mind was checking out. It was like, no, you don't know. Like the little kid in me was like, no, not doing it. Not doing it yet. Yeah.
I would kind of jump over that. I would be like, yeah. And then we would get to pick something that upset you, and then be forgiving, go into that focus of, like, I would think about, I don't like it when people in service, like in the service industry, even though I was in the service industry for over 20 years, and I understand
like waiting tables and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay.
So if I can think about, these are triggers for me. If I go up to a restaurant and nobody says hi to me, and then they're rude, when I'm like, they're rude, and and then if I start there and I go, I get underneath the action to the humanity, where then I just start questioning, like, why do people like not look you in the eye? Why do they not welcome you? Why, and then I'm like, oh, bless their heart. Maybe they're having a difficult day.
Yeah. Look how busy it is.
Like, bless their heart. Like or to shift the language to look at like, oh, they're struggling with being judgmental. Yeah. Like somebody judges me, and then I'm like, oh, they're struggling with being judgmental. Yeah. And then, but then I would just...
So that's the empathy piece.
The empathy piece of like just trying, we don't have to excuse what anybody has done, but that just even look at what could be going on there. Because then for me, when I really got to it, and when I got to the big ones in my life, I had done all this work about compassion and empathy before I got deep into writing my memoir. But then as a writer, if you just portray somebody as bad, they become a flat character, and people lose interest, and it looks bitter, and people lose interest.
So you want to give them why are they bad?
Every character, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, especially in memoir, every character has to have a humanity about them. As the writer, for me, my saying is every single character does what they do for a really good reason.
I mean, good for them.
It doesn't have to make sense.
It doesn't make sense,
but it has to be a good reason. It comes from somewhere. So you can even look at comic books, which I'm not a big comic book fan, but look at the villains.
Yeah.
Like,
they always have
they always have a backstory, and that's not a good villain unless we understand that reason. And when I went in to write the book is when I really had to focus in on like forgiveness and what happened for me after years of meditation, years of doing metta meditations of loving kindness.
Yeah.
And I had to go in and I started looking at why would they do these horrible things?
Yeah.
Not excusing them, but to just go, okay, this is just a character. It's not the character. They don't have to be the one who actually did it to me, but I just take them aside and I go, oh. And then when I looked at the thing of like, oh, they didn't even get a chance at this kind of health and happiness that I've gotten. And then to look back on like what they were holding, and like how like everyone who enacted trauma on me had trauma enacted on them, and everyone and they were all dealing with this vortex of shame and reaction. And when I went to I wrote a scene of I don't want to do a big trigger warning, but just like I'm going to talk about abuse. So right now. So it was, my stepdad was the main pedophile that ran this really horrific pedophilia ring. And I had wrote this scene where he was getting off work and he was walking home, and I had always walking up the stairs, and I'd always written it from my perspective of being a kid and being like, don't pick me. And when I had to write it from his perspective, and I realized that like, what would it be like to be the person who's the one way that they feel connected with humanity is through something that the world sees as the most despicable thing in the world. And it was the moment you're talking about, sitting with the dying uncle, where I went, I'm so glad I'm me and not him. I would pick me over that every day. And then when I had to face that of like, I do not condone anything that he did at all. And I don't think that it shouldn't, I don't think that they should be out in the world. I think they should be in, like all that stuff, but to just go, oh, that reality of just like you're so swarmed with it. And then I had the experience of going, oh, like that was about him. It wasn't about me. And then when I went back and I went and found a picture of him as a child, and I went, bless his heart. He did not plan that. Nobody wants to grow up and be the most despicable character in the world. And that alone, they will never have contact with me again. Like, I mean, he's dead now. And it freed me. It took this last like tether off.
Do you feel like there's a question that's coming to my mind, and I feel like I can speak on it too, but with that forgiveness, did it kind of open up to then you can work on the wounds in a different way rather than we're just placing blame? Because yes, it's their fault, but when we can kind of see that, then we can really work on the wound that's in there and the trauma that's in ourself. Do you feel like that opened up a whole nother I don't know, I feel like for me it was like there was that kid in me like, cool, thank you, like let that fucking go, now let's fucking hang out here. Now what do we need to do? How can we, there was some strength in that. There was I was no longer abandoning this. It was just like this anger kind of thing. It was like I could rest a little bit. I don't know, and there was some healing around that. Do you feel, I don't know, do you feel like there was some the work on your own trauma opened up, or the work just has been there?
The work for me to get to that point, I had done a ton of work
already.
So I had reparented myself.
Okay, so that's the reparenting kind of thing.
So for me to even get to that spot of that place of forgiveness, I didn't have. Even now I talk about it, and I mean, if you've listened to this podcast, like I kind of just, it's a working part of my life. It's not something I don't talk about, but I'm actually not super identified with trauma the way that I used to be.
Right. Okay.
It's like that I've healed it, and I have more of a not distant, but it's just
a
like
different
it's
relationship
not,
to it.
I've done so much work on trauma and on post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that I don't have a super charged with it. And when I was doing that work, when I got to that place of forgiveness on that level, I'd already been like, I was a safe container to live in.
Okay, yeah.
So, but when I started, it was like I would touch down on some forgiveness, and then I would have to go and lick my wounds and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to just be here for you, how much this hurts.
Not abandoning yourself.
Yes. And I think that the forgiveness that when we talk and we talk about forgiveness as a culture, it's a lot of times it's wanting to get around having to just show up and go, this hurts.
Oh, I forgive this person. And you're still fucking holding on to all that shit. Yeah.
Or you're still bleeding.
Still bleeding,
so
for sure.
Deal with the bleeding.
And I love that you started to learn reparenting yourself. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And so the safe container got me, and the tools got me to that forgiveness piece. But then it opened up, like I was taking care of myself. In a sense, I was like, oh, and then that opened up for me to continue taking care of that fucking little kid inside.
Yeah.
Showing up, letting go, letting be, and not being so out there of like, I'll fucking tell you a million reasons why I feel this way. You know, I'll point to that motherfucker, that son of a whatever. Yeah. But when I started letting go of the why and like, what am I feeling? What's going on here? That's when I became even more safe inside. I think more calm inside. The kid in me was like, oh, I'm getting attention. I'm giving myself that attention that I was striving for. It's a whole different parenting kind of thing. Reparenting. I love that.
Well, there's just so many facets of that, and we can talk
about
that in a whole
but that's a part of it.
Episode,
I think that's a part of it is being like letting go of the external shit and those stories that we've been holding on to.
But I have a card, I think, in my spiritual as fuck deck that is a little controversial, because it's like, forgive somebody today, and then on the back I'm like, it's just that fucking easy, forgive them right now. And then I've had people be like, I don't agree, and I don't know if I 100% agree, but I kind of wanted just for 1 second, what if you let go?
Yeah.
So on the flip side of what I'm saying is that we honor that our wounds are happening. We honor that our wounds are still there, and we need to be conscious of helping ourselves heal, and honor your anger and honor the thing. And there is sometimes, or it's just a practice over and over and over again. Like, I needed to sometimes just take a moment in the midst of like being angry, but I'd be like, I don't need my anger right now to keep me safe. Fucking forgive right now. And I would go, ooh. And then I would go like, okay, what's it like to have a full second of, I don't blame them. I'm not judging them. I'm not making this about me. I'm like, forgive. And I can't even quite explain what that really feels like, but there is a choice in that too. Yeah. There's a defiant kind of, rebellious, that energy I can use towards forgiving people. And that has helped me get out too, to just go, I'm going to take one moment and just go, okay, whoosh. Yeah. I can go back to being pissed in just a second. But what if I just went full blown hardcore forgiveness?
Yeah, just for one breath.
Yeah,
just fart it out.
Yes, just fart it out. Just that was my
but and my practice has been, so the forgiveness practice, maybe we'll post something on Patreon of a forgiveness practice.
You are.
Yeah. And so it was,
and I'll critique it.
A lot of years of, please forgive me, I forgive you, I forgive myself, over and over. But it was more in my head. I was like, I forgive you, I forgive myself. It's like, it was super. You made it go limp. the microphone. Anyway, but just saying it and just repetitively saying it, and all the people that would come to my mind and just like, not that fucker, but then I'd be just say it anyway. And just, I think that kind of softened it a little bit, you know, and that made it to where it was more palatable.
Yeah.
You know, even if I didn't believe it in the beginning, I would just say it. It's just words, even like the metta phrases, the compassion phrases. You got dirt on your nose now from the microphone, just so you know. Yeah. Get it.
It's like punker spit.
Yeah, I think this fucking forgiveness shit is over.
No, it's not. I had to do a thing.
Punker spit, it is punker spit.
On the microphone.
Yeah.
Just for people who are not watching YouTube, I got distracted by like pressing my nose up to the microphone. But back to being serious, because we're almost ready to be done with forgiveness.
Yeah.
So we're just definitely going to be posting a forgiveness meditation. Here's some thoughts on forgiveness. And then another tool that I've used is just telling myself that I value forgiveness. And I had a little mantra where I would go, forgiveness is my third favorite F word. And I just go, I'm a person that I love forgiveness. Forgiveness is my third favorite F word.
Fake it till you make it.
Yes.
Yeah,
and just to go like, I am a person who values forgiveness.
Yeah,
and then I would say, fuck friendship and forgiveness.
Right.
Favorite. Fuck friendship, forgiveness. Favorite. I fucking love forgiveness.
Yeah.
And then it just got me into going
Sweet
like
mantra.
Yeah.
Like it.
Well, but it made it like an active, like where I would just be with it to just go, because I saw, and if that's another way I have gotten pushed myself to be forgiving, is to see the long-term effects of not forgiving.
Right. Well,
which are not fucking
poison.
Attractive.
It's fucking poison.
Poison.
Yeah.
It gives you wrinkles. It makes, you know.
And even when we're faking it till we make it, doesn't mean we're letting go and it's okay. It's like we're just kind of letting it be, and we loosen the grip a little bit. Just open your hand. And it's still going to be right there, but it's not as fucking, we're not holding on. And we can just fucking, and when we loosen the grip, we let it be, then maybe it'll go. I don't know if the memories still will be there. They're not as like anymore when they come up, you know? And I don't believe the stories that I was holding on to. Yeah. That whoever the caregivers, the people that I was holding resentment towards, I was believing the stories that I was being told, you know?
Yeah. But I think also that there's the letting go, and the way
letting be.
Yeah, letting be. But even with that, like the physical representations for me with forgiveness would sound like this, like, and you're loose and flaccid. And I'm like, when I think about forgiveness, I'm like, I fucking forgive, like raw, like a rock star. I fucking forgive. And then like going into it about like, yes, forgiveness, instead, so that I don't have to give up, that there's so much energy involved. And that why can't I get like stoked on forgiveness, stoked on compassion, energetic about it. Like, so then when I am in that and I'm focusing on it, I can be like, when somebody triggers me where I'm like, you fucking cut in line. You think I'm not worthy? Your space is more valuable than mine. Like, you think all these things. And then I'm like, but I fucking forgive. And, and then I get
extreme forgiveness. I like it. I love it.
That it's not passive.
Yeah, it's definitely not passive. I'm not as extreme, not passive, somewhere in the middle crack. The middle path. Always in the middle
Always. Yeah. And I think that the thing to bring it back to this fucking photo.
Forgive yourself.
Forgive that guy.
Yeah, he was doing the best I could. I was hurting.
Bless your heart.
I was suffering.
And and then to forgive ourselves in the moment. Like where I just, in the moment of like, I mean, when I'm that.
Were you trying to see who was back? You know what that was? That's Michaela. So they were playing a show.
That's what I'm
Here,
thinking.
Kitty was playing a show, and I'm like, oh, check me out. My wife's playing blah. She's like, oh my God.
You can barely see, but she's luminous and beautiful and doing art.
And she's playing bass guitar, killing it.
And then there's her There's
lovely husband Joe.
wow.
Yeah.
That's the thing though. She saw and she just yeah.
She saw beneath that. She really, and you know, she trusted it until, and she saw it until I could see it. You know,
She's a saint,
she's
man.
she's a pillar. The women in my life show the fuck up for me. Yeah, and I'm finally seeing it and like really like trusting it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You might be one of them.
But yeah.
Show the fuck up.
Yeah.
Not like that though.
Not like that.
You'd be like, peace. You and your fucking robe
like,
and your fucking choker that used to be a necklace. Give me my ring.
No, I'd be like, podcast's over, dude.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it. But can we still use your
Yeah, can we use your equipment?
Yeah, I'm gonna get somebody.
It's getting super
it's so
hot in
here.
So we need AC on it. So,
we do.
But wrap it up.
All right. So
forgiveness. We wrapped it up. I mean, keep going. Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you know somebody
it's
who,
a process.
Yeah. Okay. Stop,
Yeah,
Joe.
go ahead.
We're done. Okay. If you want to help the podcast, please. We said it in the beginning, but just remember: rate, review, subscribe. Send this to your friends. If you think somebody would like this, please help spread the word. Every little bit counts and helps.
Yes.
Also, if you want to be a part of this community and support the podcast with some monthly contributions, every tiny patron helps.
Yeah.
Like really. So go to our Patreon page. It's Spiritual AF. And then, well, Joe, where can we find you?
You can find me on the gram at _joe.clements_ and also on Facebook, Joseph Clements. And my website is josephclements.com.
And you can find me on Instagram.
Where can we find you, Roxanne?
I think you just got really hot and you're just going to sleep. So I'm taking control of this.
Okay, cool. Go for it.
So on Instagram, my mic keeps getting weird. On Instagram, I'm at spiritual_AF. I'm also on Instagram as Writer's Resource. You can find me online at my website, spiritual-af.com, or for writing and stuff, you can find me under my name, Roxan McDonald. Roxanne McDonald, like a chemical. Roxanne McDonald. Chemical hamburger. That's what it is. I just made that up.
I like that.
Chemical hamburger.
Chemical hamburger. That should be. I like it. Cool.
And then we want to always thank Jeremy Miller of the Betterment Brothers podcast. Go if you're interested in getting some Betterment talks and stuff.
Betterment Ambrose.
Yeah. And you like the word dude?
Yeah. Definitely.
Jeremy says dude a lot. Go check him out.
Yeah.
Jeremy is our guru of all podcasts.
Yeah, he's
doing,
hooking it up.
Yes, and we love him.
And I did want to get a plug to my brother Luke Clements, who did our logo, and he was really patient with us. We were going back and forth and sent us a lot of stuff. So you can find him on Instagram at Luke_Elliptus. Like Luke Elliptus. So Luke_ALYPTUS.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Luke, but then I didn't know if he wanted to be all like, some people don't want to be on social media. So then but he is responsible for making.
He's doing this graphic design thing, and he's doing great. Such a cool person. I call him a cool kid.
He is. He's your kid brother,
he's
right?
my brother. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Joe, thank you for sharing that incredible photo with us.
You're welcome. And thank you for always sharing your depth. Whatever. Fuck.
No, it was the afterwards. Depth. All right. Bye. Spiritual.
Or whatever.